My name's Abigail. I'm a 55-year-old housewife. My husband passed away early and I raised my son Liam on my own. This year, he turned 25. He graduated from college and found a job. Now he's working hard as a professional. He's the pride of my life. He, thinking I would still be lonely, lives with me at home. This house was left by my late husband. I guess it's not wrong to want to spend more time in the house with Liam. However, I was surprised earlier this year when he told me something unexpected. He had a girlfriend and was planning on marrying her. First, I was shocked that he had a girlfriend, introverted and shy. He was always awkward with women. In his student days, he was so puzzled about what to do, even when he received chocolates on Valentine's Day. My son talking about marriage now makes me incredibly happy. You have a girlfriend and you're thinking about getting married? I'm so happy, I told him. That was my true feeling. I was happy to feel his growth. Seeing how happy I was, he seemed relieved. I'm glad you're happy, Mom. He said he would bring her home soon. I was excitedly waiting, sure he would bring her quickly, but the opportunity didn't come. I felt bad for rushing him, but I asked him about it. He smiled awkwardly. It's hard to match our schedules. I really want to introduce you to her soon. Apparently it was hard to bring her due to her schedule. Instead, he shared a little bit about her. Her name's Sydney. She's 4 years older than Liam. He was choosing an older woman, which caught me by surprise. Made me a bit worried. I wondered if he was already under her thumb. Really? Does she work? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, she's a tutor. Her parents are teachers too. According to him, Sydney's family, including her brother and sister, are teachers. Seems she was raised in a very strict household. Being a tutor, she must adjust to her students' schedules. She must be very dedicated to her work. Sorry for rushing things. I'll wait patiently to meet her. I said, hearing my words, he said with a smile, Thanks, Mom. But fate can be frightening. 2 months had flown by since Liam said he would introduce his girlfriend, and I was starting to feel like her absence was intentional. Then, by chance, I met Sydney. It happened while I was enjoying lunch with a friend after a long time. The woman seated back to back with me began talking loudly. Her voice was quite loud for a public place, and I felt slight discomfort. She was complaining to her lunch partner about an upcoming wedding. Meeting the family before the wedding is such a hassle, isn't it? Her friend, trying to calm her down, said in a low voice, Don't say that. But the woman's gripe didn't stop. She seemed to dislike the man's family background. You know, he was raised in a single-parent home, and he always holds his mother in high regard. So I'm delaying meeting her. I want to see how long Liam will put up with it. I told him to prove he's not a mama's boy. She said. I almost turned around. She had indeed mentioned Liam as the man's name. I felt a slight dizziness. I could hear her friend advising, Sydney, you need to be more humble. That confirmed it. The woman talking loudly behind me about her future mother-in-law was Liam's fiancée, Sydney. My hand holding my coffee cup trembled. I was so disturbed. After that, I ate the recommended dessert, but I can't recall what it was. I just wanted to leave the place as soon as possible. That was my only thought. Sydney, unaware that I was there, continued to complain about her fiancé's family. I underestimate the single mother family. A child who grows up without the full care of both parents will not be decent. Meanwhile, my family has a solid background, and I'm well educated. By the way, his mom is such a clinging mother. I'm going to make him abandon her after the wedding. Hearing all of that, fear overcame my anger. The conflict between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had begun even before the family meeting, before the wedding. I couldn't hold back my anger and knocked the cup on the table. I quickly left there immediately. Yet she was the woman Liam chose. There must be something wonderful about her. Back home, I tried to calm myself by gaslighting myself. I couldn't bring myself to tell Liam about the incident and leave it alone. Since that chance encounter with Sydney, I stopped urging him about meeting the family. After all, I knew she had no intention of coming. There was no need to invite her. I didn't want to be continually looked down upon by being too accommodating. Liam seemed a bit suspicious of my change of heart, but didn't press further. "It's okay if you're busy, whenever is convenient for you," I told him. He's innocent in all of this. I tried to ease his burden with my words. It seems the wedding plans between Liam and Sydney were progressing faster than the family meeting. Seeing the wedding venue brochure on the living room table, I realized the countdown to the wedding had begun. I wanted to speak up about the wrong order of things, but I refrained for my son's sake. If I started making a fuss, I'd be accused of being unable to let go, or of having a mama's boy, the baseless accusations that would upset me. Indeed, Liam is important to me, but he also is an independent adult. I haven't interfered more than necessary. To prove that, I have to remain a tolerant mother. "One of these days, there's a family meeting with the parent in-laws. They've reserved a fancy French restaurant. I'd like you to come, Mom," Liam suddenly said one morning. He had previously visited Sydney's family, but they wanted to have a formal family meeting. The meeting was scheduled for 2 days later. It was a sudden announcement, and I felt a bit irritated. Shouldn't such things be planned after matching everyone's schedules? Again, I found myself having to hold back. "All right, I haven't met Sydney yet, but it's good to meet her soon," I said, hiding my irritation. Liam apologized, saying, "Sorry for the sudden plan." 113. I thought it was Sydney and her family who should be apologizing, not him. I reassured him. "It's fine, I'm ready to see them." On the day of the family meeting, Liam and I went to the designated upscale French restaurant. I was a bit nervous, as it was my first time in such a fancy place. He chuckled. "Feels kind of nerve-wracking, doesn't it?" We gave our names to the staff. The staff stared at us with disdain. The others stood at the corner, pointing and giggling as we entered. Then we were guided to a private room. Seemed that Sydney's family was already gathered there. Sydney and her mother Lauren were apparently present. "Excuse us," I said as I opened the door to the private room. Seated there was Lauren, with a definite teacher vibe, and Sydney with slightly flashy makeup. Her demure dress didn't really match Sydney's makeup. Probably Lauren insisted on wearing it for the family meeting. It didn't suit her at all. Sydney and Lauren didn't say a word until I finished my greeting. Furthermore, they scrutinized me from head to toe, as if evaluating me. It was as if they had done me a favor by coming to listen to my greetings. I thought this was the kind of daughter raised by such a mother. Since Liam knew Lauren, he said, "Long time no see." "Indeed. I've been looking forward to this meeting the famous mother. I've never had a connection with single mothers," Lauren said with a laugh. There was a sting in her use of the term single mother. "Don't think that my daughter stole your precious son," she said with a refined laugh, saying something rather rude. Perhaps she was not even aware that she was being rude. To her, this must be perfectly normal, not rude at all. I somehow managed to return a polite smile. "He's still inexperienced, but please take care of him," I said, playing it down. She nodded contently, behaving as if she was superior. I thought she must treat her students and the parents the same way. I wouldn't want such a teacher for my child. "Please, have a seat." She invited me to sit down. Even at this point, Sydney hadn't greeted me. She just looked at me with disdain. I had to resist the urge to pour the water on the table over her head. "Nice to meet you, Sydney. I'm Liam's mother." If we both remained silent, nothing would start. Reluctantly, I initiated the conversation. Then Sydney snorted in a mocking manner. "I know, you just said that. I don't like people who repeat themselves. It's not efficient," she said arrogantly. My forehead vein twitched under her rude remark. Anger welled up inside me, but I couldn't afford to lose my temper here. She was the woman Liam chose. I feigned calmness. "Oh, I see. I'll keep that in mind," I replied, forcing a smile. I feel like I was reaching my limit. Lauren had informed us. "Well, my husband's a bit late due to work. Let's start without him." "Today, Dad is splurging. You'll never have such food because you're poor." Sydney said to Liam, with a seemingly innocent smile. He just went along unfazed. I always knew he was kind and patient, but this was beyond that. I was a little worried about if he could handle society. Was he being taken advantage of? I wondered about a parent's concern. That's nice. Let's enjoy the feast, Liam. I chimed in. Sydney and Lauren wore unpleasant smiles. I couldn't understand why they were making such faces. But soon it became clear. Quietly, the door to the private room opened, and the first dish was brought in. On a beautifully decorated plate was the cuisine. I watched as the dishes were placed on the table one by one. True to a high-end French restaurant, the starters were visually stunning. Then the plate gently placed in front of me. I couldn't help but exclaim upon seeing the dish in front of me. It was just a baguette on a glass plate. That was the reason for Sydney and Lauren's laughter. They seemed intent on mocking me to the fullest. I later learned that the owner of the upscale French restaurant was Lauren's brother. They had colluded to ridicule me. "The pour that suits you best," Sydney said, laughing heartily while looking at my shocked expression. Lauren, not saying a word, covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She's probably hiding a vulgar smile behind it. I couldn't take it anymore. Even Liam seemed to turn pale in this situation. "Is that so? It suits a poor person like me, does it?" I muttered Sydney's words. I was looking down, trying to contain my anger. Sydney, seeing me bow, must have thought I was crying. She said, laughing even harder now, "Abigail, crying over the truth isn't logical." Normally, Lauren would be expected to scold Sydney for such rudeness, but she just said, "Oh dear, Sydney." With no intention of scolding her, I inadvertently let out a sigh. At that moment, the door opened and Sydney's father entered. "Sorry for being late." The father who entered, apologizing for his lateness, looked back and forth between Sydney, laughing heartily, and me, bowing down. He then caught the sight of the baguette in front of me and gasped. He seemed unable to comprehend the situation. "What is this about?" he asked Sydney, sounding a bit panicked. She proudly explained the situation. "Dad, this is Liam's mother, raised in poverty. I thought she wouldn't have experienced a fancy French restaurant's baguette, so I had it specifically prepared," she said. He scolded her, saying, "What are you talking about? That's taking a joke too far." But he couldn't hide his amusement. Deep down, he must have been mocking us too. The idea of such parents and their daughter becoming my family was unbearable. I raised my bowed head. At that moment, his eyes widened in sheer surprise. His face turned pale very quickly. "Jeffrey, long time no see. I never expected Sydney to be your daughter," I said, somewhat surprising myself, because I knew him. "Principal?" he exclaimed in shock. "I have been the principal of a private high school for 3 years. When a close friend's father passed away, he bequeathed me this role. I was entrusted with the legacy of bringing new winds to the school. Reforming the school was no easy task, but I had the determination and perseverance from raising Liam alone. I slowly but surely adjusted customs and brought fresh ideas. The teacher, who was always harsh on me, Jeffrey. He fell back, his face cold. Everyone stared at me wide-eyed. "This insult from your daughter? I'll never forget. Instead of talking loudly about the school's educational policies, maybe you should pay more attention to the education at home," I said, staring down at him. He has always rated me. "A single mother can't be a principal," he had often said. He even spread rumors that I couldn't properly educate my own children. "Hey, what does that mean? Abigail is Dad's boss?" Seeing Jeffrey turn pale, Sydney seemed to realize the magnitude of what she'd done. Lauren was trembling, lost for words. I looked at each member of Sydney's family and slowly bit into the baguette. The sound of me crunching the baguette echoed in the room. Delicious, as expected as a high-end French restaurant's baguette would. "How about you, Jeffrey?" I offered, smiling as I held out the glass plate with the baguette. His hands trembled amusingly as he took it. "Don't get the wrong idea. I always separate work from my personal life. Your dismissal has always been a topic at my board meetings. I was the one opposing it." After all, without a rival, there's no momentum for reform. But your role ends here. That was a final warning for him. In fact, I had evidence of him accepting bribes from parents during admissions and manipulating interviews. He was enjoying a luxurious life with that money, dining at upscale French restaurants and driving luxury cars. I was still deciding whether to pursue criminal charges. If he left the school quietly, I was willing to let it go. Liam, let's go home. She may be this kind of lady, but you could still see her as a marriage partner. I won't stop you if you choose her, I said to Liam, whose gaze was fixed on the baguette Jeffrey held. To him, Sydney, with a strained smile, whispered, "You'll marry me, right?" Thinking marrying him was her only way to save Jeffrey's position, her pleading eyes turned to him. He looked down, gripping his knees with his hands. "The engagement is off. This marriage is as if it never happened," he declared. "It's just a joke. I didn't mean to mock you. It's a joke, Liam. You're so stiff." Sydney desperately tried to cover up. If that wasn't mockery, then what was it? I was amazed she couldn't come up with a better excuse. He looked at Sydney with an unexpectedly cold gaze. "Sydney, you've been given a lot by your parents. But I believed I received even more from my mom. Seeing her work was cool. She's still cool. I could never forgive you for mocking my mom. What a pity for the students you're teaching. I don't want my child to be taught by someone like you." He expressed pity. "I heard bad rumors about you, but I chose to believe otherwise. You betrayed that trust," he said, causing tears to stream down Sydney's face. She seemed to finally understand the irreversible damage done. Wait, you're joking about the breakup, right? I bragged about getting married to my friends. I can't break it off, it's embarrassing," she pleaded tearfully. "Don't leave me, Liam. I really love you. I promise I'll treat your mother well." "What's most necessary for you now is to reflect on the things that came to this. We probably won't see each other again, but I hope you grow." As Liam and I were about to leave the private room, Jeffrey grabbed his shoulder to stop him. "I've been patient, but let me say this clearly. What's wrong with being raised by a single mother? Don't you see Sydney's vulgar behavior? Raised by a respectable parent? You should be more ashamed," he said firmly. Jeffrey had no response and looked down in shame. Sydney's cries echoed in the private room when we left the restaurant. The moment we stepped outside the restaurant, we heard Jeffrey's angry voice. He was probably yelling at Sydney. "It's your fault! I didn't raise a spoiled daughter like you!" But both you and Mom agreed that we would humiliate them for being poor." "You will regret this." "Liam, you need to be more discerning when choosing women." When I said that, he scratched his head and said, "It's embarrassing." Apparently, Sydney had aggressively pursued him. He tends to be easily swayed. Sydney probably saw that in him. "Anyway, it's good this came out before the marriage," I said, feeling relieved as we went home. The engagement was annulled. Sydney demanded compensation, but Liam dismissed it. He explained logically to his lawyer that Sydney was entirely to blame for the broken engagement. The compensation demand was dropped. When threatened with a lawsuit, she stepped down quickly. Her parents must have told her not to make things worse. Though I kept work and personal life separate, Jeffrey had to leave the school. The bribery issue during admissions was about to become public. Faced with the choice of leaving quietly or going to court, he chose the former. An expected choice. Now, unemployed, he's desperately seeking a new job. But bad rumors spread fast in the same industry. It's unlikely many schools would hire a teacher with such a reputation. He's at a difficult crossroads, deciding whether to continue teaching or to find a new job. Sydney, reassigned from her tutoring job, having bragged about getting married, the broken engagement had left her too embarrassed to face her colleagues and students. I heard she couldn't stand teaching towards the end due to stress. Currently, she's reportedly confined to a room in her parents' house, not even seeking a new job. I heard from the lawyer that she's too embarrassed to even walk around the neighborhood. While I feel a bit sorry for her, it's her responsibility. She still occasionally tried to contact him again and asked to get back with Liam after that day, but Liam never answered her calls. Lauren, burdened with two unemployed adults, is reportedly preparing for divorce. If she couldn't live as luxuriously as before, she wanted to use her earnings solely for herself, which was her reason for divorce. Logical, perhaps, but abandoning one's family for such a reason? Ultimately, Sydney's attitude and actions led to the family's downfall. All I can do is hope that she, having lost everything, will recover on her own. Today, some time after the incident, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in a while. Liam introduced me to such a wonderful woman. The woman who introduced me to is a single mother working at the same place as him. I've disappointed you once. I promise this time you'll feel happy and proud. Don't say that. As long as you feel happy. She has a daughter who's about to turn 3. It seems she's the one who lifted Liam's spirits after his broken engagement with Sydney. She was very bright and sunny. Her daughter was also fond of Liam. It looked as if I might even become a grandmother. Despite the roundabout journey, I'm slightly relieved that Liam seems to be on his way to building a happy family.